You are welcome to the second lecture in international trade and finance. My name is Dr. Clement Ogbaini. So we have to remind ourselves first of all with the payment terms and system in international trade. As we mentioned earlier, the most frequent payment term and system in international trade is the letter of credit. What the letter of credit does is that it helps to protect both the buyer and both the importer and the exporter. A letter of credit is issued by a foreign bank to the the banker to the importer will issue the letter of credit to the importer, which he will send to the exporter. The exporter will now deposit it with his own bank. What is in the letter of credit is that the importer's bank is giving assurance that if the goods that the exporter is sending, if the goods arrive safely and in good condition and in standard condition, that the money for the payment will come from his own bank. That is what the letter of credit is saying. So once a bank issued a letter of credit to an importer, it means that the importer has money in that account, or the bank is ready to grant the importer money to pay for the goods that he imported. So with that letter of credit, it gives the exporter confidence to send goods across to the importer. So if the goods did not arrive, the exporter will not receive any money. But if it arrives, because the bank has issued a letter of credit, they will ensure that payment is made to the exporter. So that is why we say that an SC or letter of credit help to protect both the exporter and the importer. Then we also talk about cash advance, which is saying that the exporter can insist that the importer must deposit cash. He must make payment before goods are shipped to them. They must the cash payment advance is that you have to the importer must make deposit. It might not be total deposit, but part of the deposit the importer is expected to make before the exporter can send his goods. Maybe let's say a Nigerian produce goods, you want to send the goods to Canada. You now tell the Canadian buyer, that is the importer, to deposit, if not 100% for the goods, or it could be 50, it could be 75%, so that when the goods arrive, he pay the balance. But the essence of the idea of cash advance is that the importer shows his seriousness by depositing money for the production. So that is the cash advance method. Another method of payment is what we call the documentary collection. Documentary collection. This one is close to the LC, which is letter of credit. The documentary collection is a procedure that allows a seller to give their bank instruction to forward related documents to the bank of the buyer. The instructions are normally accompanied by request for documentation to be presented to the buyer for payment. A documentary collection is a process in which the seller instructs their bank to forward documents related to the export of goods to a buyer's bank, with a request to present this document to the buyer for payment, indicating and on what condition this document can be released to the buyer. So what is we are saying here is that the importer is importing, the exporter is exporting. So the exporter will, through his bank, uh, instruct his bank to forward documents to the importer's bank. These are documents concerning the transfer of goods. These are documents concerning the standard of the goods, the quantity, the weighbill, the invoice. All these will be transferred to the importer's bank. and also it also show the conditions of payment, so that when the goods eventually arrive, the bank will give it to the importer and make a payment. If the importer have not made payment, those documents will not be handed over to the importer. So it is a that one. This is a bank-to-bank processing, but the transaction is initiated by the exporter, who now submit the document concerning that shipment to his own bank, who his own bank will transfer them to the importer's bank, and there is an instruction that the bank will forward document related to the export of goods to the buyer's bank with a request to present this document to the buyer for payment, indicating when and on what condition this document can be released to the buyer. So it shows once this document is released to the buyer, it conveys ownership. But before it can be released to the buyer, the bank must have collected the exporter's money before the goods are released to the importer. So that is the documentary collection. Then we have open account. Open account transaction is a sales where the goods are shipped and delivered before payment is due. In this case, the importer will insist that the goods must be shipped to him before he can make a payment. So in open account system, it is shown that the exporter will not receive any money until he has produced and delivered to the importer. So this one is an open account system. So we also have the consignment. Consignment in international trade is a variation of the open account in which payment is sent to the exporter only after the goods has been sold by the importer to the end customer. So in the case of open account, the exporter receive his money only when the goods gets to the importer. If you are sending goods from Nigeria maybe to China, unless the Chinese customer have received the goods, it is then that you can he can make payment to you. But in the case of consignment, is that he will not just receive the goods, he will receive the goods and sell before he can make payment to the importer. This one happen mainly in where the importer is not, maybe is not the final consumer. He might not be the one to use the goods, but rather is importing the goods so that he can sell to other consumers, or that he can retain them before he can get the money to pay. So in this case, you will see that the importer is not the final consumer. He might just be an agent. It might just be a broker. It might just be a distributor. So in this case, in the case of consignment, he receive the goods and distribute to and sell to other buyers before he will collect the money and make payment to the exporter. So that is what the consignment mode of payment is. Why it is different from open account, because in the case of open account, what you do is that once the goods must get to the importer before he pays. But here in consignment, the goods will not just get to the importer. The importer must sell before he can pay the exporter. So now, having known the different modes of payment, the different terms of payment in the international trade, let's move now to international trade organizations. Let's move to international trade organizations. One of them is the United Nations. The United Nations, one of the principal reasons why the United Nations was formed from the League of Nations was because in order to prevent war, to encourage unity among the member nations, is for to prevent war and to encourage peace and unity among the member nations. And apart from uh, ensuring there is peace and unity, it's also United Nations was also formed so that to ensure that there is a there's trade between the member nations. United Nations also encourage trading among member nations. So the main purpose is to maintain peace, to maintain security, and to develop friendly relationship between nations, and to achieve international cooperation, to serve as a center for harmonizing actions of nations. So you see that the United Nations is, apart from providing maintaining peace and security, apart from ensuring there is harmony, apart from existing as an organization which is to maintain peace in the world, they are also encouraging the member nations to trade among themselves. So trade dispute can also be settled at this level of international trade. That is the reason why you see that at international trade, they can even stop a country from trading. They can uh, put sanction on a country. Maybe like what we see now, like a country like Iran is being sanctioned by United Nations, so, because they cannot trade freely because of they are developing nuclear weapons. Also, a country like Russia has been sanctioned by United Nations because they invaded Ukraine. So the United Nations is stopping the trade with Russia. Not a total ban, but they put sanction on how far Russia can trade. So United Nations does not just exist to for peace. They also exist to ensure that there is trade among the member nations. Then we have another, which is another, and we have the World Trade Organization. World Trade Organization is an organ, is one of those organs of the United Nations, which is mainly concerned with uh, handling issues of trade between member nations. So the World Trade Organization is an intergovernmental organization. Their headquarters is at Geneva, Switzerland. Their headquarters is at Geneva, Switzerland. Their main purpose is to regulate and to facilitate international trade. To facilitate international trade is that they make nations to come into agreement to so as to trade among themselves. They make nations to come into agreement to trade among themselves. They also ensure that trade barriers are removed. They ensure that individual nations does not put too much trade barriers, so that if there's a free trade between countries, they believe that the world economy will grow. But if there are a lot of trade barriers, it can limit the uh, the impact of trade. It can reduce the trading activities among member nations. So that is one of the functions of the International World Trade Center. They are to encourage, they are to control, they are to facilitate trade among member nations. So if there are disputes among member nations, the concerning trade, it is being handled at the level of the World Trade Center, World Trade Organization. They have their headquarters, which is the World Trade Center, in Geneva, Switzerland. Another international institution that is also concerned with international trade and finance is the World Bank. The World Bank is an international financial institution that provides loans and grants to governments of low and middle income countries for the purpose of pursuing capital projects. So the World Bank is coming in here because this course is about international trade and finance. So the World Bank is an international financial institution. So the World Bank is one of those institutions that were established by United Nations. Their primary functions is to help nations to grow their economy, to help nations to grow their economy. They do this by providing advisory services. They do it by conducting research and advise the nations on how best they can go in running their economy. They also engage in some projects. They engage in some projects in some countries. There are projects, we classify them as World Bank projects. Not just financing the project, they ensure that the project is successfully implemented. So there are projects in Nigeria, we call them, they are being sponsored by the World Bank. So, and also, lastly, apart from having direct projects in countries, the World Bank also uh, give loan. They give loan to countries. They give loans to countries so that those countries can grow their economy. And those, most of the loans from the World Bank, they are targeted towards particular projects. Most of the loans that come from World Bank, they are targeted as towards a particular project. So that with this, they can track the fund, they can track the implementation, they can track the 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 usage of the money. So World Bank, they encourage, they grant loans to countries, to sponsor project that will provide social services to the masses. So that is the functions of the World Bank. So similar to the World Bank, we have the International Monetary Fund. Similar to the World Bank, we have the International Monetary Fund, IMF. IMF is a global organization that work to achieve sustainable growth and prosperity. And member nations of IMF, they have about 119 countries that come together and they are members of International Monetary Fund. And the main goal of IMF is to achieve sustainable growth and prosperity. So that this IMF is also an organization, they promote economic policies that will stabilize the economy. They promote, they make recommendations to countries to how to best run their economy to ensure stability. And also, they encourage companies, they encourage countries to collaborate in areas in monetary issues. They encourage inter-central bank cooperation. They encourage inter ministerial cooperation so that the policies and programs of one country will not uh, negatively affect another nation. So IMF ensures, one, like we said, they advise nations on how to run their economy properly. They advise nations on areas of economic stability, what will stabilize the economy, and they ensure cooperation, mutual cooperation between the central banks of different nations. You know, the central bank is the apex bank that is involved in managing the nation's economy and the money supply. So this the IMF ensures that there is cooperation among the central banks of member nations. So that monetary cooperation is one of those areas that the IMF comes in. Also, we have the IMF also grant loans to nations. They grant loans to countries to uh, uh, target specific projects. They grant loan to companies that are illiquid. So IMF is one of those institutions which countries run to in order to take a loan. So we have mentioned four international institutions and finance organizations that aided that are aiding trading at the international level. One we said is the the United Nations, which is concerned with peacekeeping, which is concerned with harmony, and also encouraging free trade. Then we have the World Trade Center, whose main purpose is to encourage and to regulate trade among nations. Then we have the World Bank, which I said that is the number one international finance organization. They provide loans and grants government to government in low countries for the purpose of pursuing capital projects. Then we have another international institution, which is the International Monetary Fund. The International Monetary Fund is concerned with achieving growth and prosperity among member nations. They advise government, they grant loan, that they advise on how to increase productivity, how to increase job creation, and how to improve on the life of the citizens. So IMF, but unfortunately, many people only know IMF for loans, for giving nations loan, but they also that is one of their functions, but they are also encouraging sustainable growth and prosperity among nations by encouraging free trade, monetary cooperation between central banks, and also trade cooperation among member nations. And I said that about 190 countries are members of IMF. So we are going to also be looking at the free trade zone, because Nigeria, in order to encourage exportation, because over time Nigeria government has been contending with how to increase export, how to encourage individuals and companies to go into exportation. So now the the nation Nigeria have done so much to encourage exportation, so that to stabilize the economy. So that is why the country, they have established what we call the free trade zone. Just as we have industrial zones, there are free trade zones. And in Nigeria, we also call it the export processing zone. Those zones are designated, they are estates of industries that maybe an area, a wide area. The government will provide facilities, provide road, provide electricity, provide the necessary facilities, so that companies can go there, locate there, and produce for export. So companies that produce goods that is meant for export, government will advise them to go and operate in the export processing zone. And those zones, the tax rate is low, they have good water, they have good roads. All is to encourage companies that are into export to come together for the purpose of for the purpose of cooperation and to increase their productivity. So those zones were established in Nigeria. They call it the free trade zone or the export processing zone. And there are certain privileges that are given to companies that are located here. Maybe the cost of energy will be lower in the zone, and also tax rates might also be lower, and there could be synergies among the companies that are located in the export processing zone, so that the all is geared towards increasing their productivity and making them to be able to export. So, by definition, a free trade zone is a distinct economic zone in the country that confers the special privilege in relation to trade and business policy for companies carrying on business within that zone, especially in the area of taxes. It can also be defined as a special area within the country where foreign and local companies can import material, manufacture goods, and export products and perform services without being subjected to the usual custom duties, the usual taxes, labor, and bureaucratic regulation. So it is created that when companies locate there, they have so many benefits. apart from tax benefit, apart from good road network, good electricity, and others. And there's no much bureaucratic bottleneck in those areas. So that is the free trade zone. So there are many benefits for having a free trade zone. There are many benefits for having a free trade zone and for locating in a free trade zone. Why should a company be go and locate their factory in the free trade zone? One of the reasons is that there are factories that are located in the free trade zone. Many are exempted from paying tax and levies and custom duties, and some that are paying tax, their tax payment is lower than those that are located outside the free trade zone. The registration of foreign capital investment with capital appreciation of the investment. So it is easier when you operate here to make registration for capital investment, and also companies established in the free trade zone are able to employ competent personnel and foreign managers. This is because they are exempted from the expatriate quota requirement, as they are not required to obtain expatriate quota before they are to bring in expatriate. So if you are located in the free trade zone and you want to bring in an expatriate, you don't need to be seeking approval, because your place of location being a free trade zone, it gives you that leverage. It gives that company the leverage. So that is one of the reasons why some companies will prefer to go and locate their factory in the free trade zone. So also there is free remittance of profit and dividends earned in the free trade zone. So if you are located your factory in the free trade zone, it is very easy to transfer the money to your country of origin. Let's say a German company is in Nigeria and is located in the free trade zone. If and profit is made, when though there might be restriction in other part of the country, but because you are located in the free trade zone, there will be no problem in remitting profit made to the country where the owners of the company come from. So apart from this, a company does not need an import license to import goods. If you are located in the free trade zone, you don't request for any license. By your location, government uh, give them that freedom to import goods, freedom to bring in expatriates. A business that is located in that zone can sell 25% of the overall output into Nigeria by acquiring legitimate permission and pay the necessary charges. So once you are located there, though it's an export, it's meant for companies that want to produce and export, you are also free to produce, and out of the 100% of the goods you produce, you can decide to use 25% to sell in the domestic market. So this is a very good area for to attract foreign companies, and the zone, uh, if all disputes within the zone between the government and enterprise are resolved by uh, authority in an expeditious and equitable manner. So if you are located within the zone, there are laws that it is easier to settle any dispute between the company and the government. So another benefit why government create this free zone is that it encourages research and development. So companies can jointly finance research and development because they are faced with export market. They can jointly finance jointly finance research and development, and also is it is easy to carry out technological transfer. So also, apart from all these benefits, we are going to look at registration if you want to register a company in the free trade zone, the first thing you do is to obtain and complete the application form. You submit it to the zone administration office, uh, and you must also submit your project plan and your business, your feasibility study. All this must be submitted before you can now, when they have reviewed your application and it is approved, they will give the company what we call the operating license. And once that operating license is given, you are free to establish your company in the free trade zone and be producing. You remit the investment capital through bank locations located in the zone, which will in turn issue certificate of cash capital importation. So there are so many benefits that this free trade zone brings to the nation. So you are invited to read more about them. This is just a tip of the iceberg. But the material will be made available, and you also do your research so that you deepen your knowledge and add it to the one that you have gotten from this investing. Thank you. My name is Dr. Clement. I thank you for listening to this lecture.